My first question for all of you, but let's have a show of hands, who here is a rational decision maker? Pretty much everybody's a rational decision maker. You're Armenian, okay. Not sure what that means, but okay, so pretty much everybody here is a rational decision maker. The reason why you think you're a rational decision maker goes back to a guy called Descartes who wrote a number of discourses and talked about the concept of the human being being elevated above the animal because we can rationally organize our thoughts, we can control our emotions and make rational decisions. So for the last 300 years, we've all thought that we're rational beings. Humans, by nature, are rational beings. Interestingly, we're not. We all make decisions emotionally. We do not use rational things to control our emotions. In fact, our emotions control our decisions. A great neuroscientist, a guy called Antonio Damasio, wrote a book at the back end of the 90s called TEDxYerevan. And from the work that he's done in neuroscience, essentially working with brain-damaged people, he was able to show that on the basis of this guy here. He's called Phineas Cage. In 1867, he was a railway worker. In 1867, he had an horrendous accident, even worse than driving your car onto the edge of a bridge. An iron pole went up through his cheek, through his brain, and came out the other side, and he survived. What was interesting about Phineas Cage, however, was that when he recovered from the accident, the prefrontal part of the prefrontal lobe of his brain was completely destroyed. That's where we process our emotions, the executive area of the brain. He no longer could make any decisions, tea or coffee, what to do next, where to go. Because his emotional center had been destroyed, he could no longer make any decisions. We need emotion to give value to the different options that we have. Hold on to that idea of giving value to the different options we have. And I'm going to do a little experiment with us here. I've not done this before, so it may completely fail. But hey, we're living on the edge here. So, I've just promoted all of you to the CEO of a major American business, okay? And I want you to decide between this guy and this guy as to who you would take on in a senior management role. Okay, show of hands again. Mr. Blue or Mr. Red? Okay, about 50-50. So it failed. But they've got exactly the same CV, but yet you've been able to make a decision between one or the other. How did you make that decision? All you've seen is a photograph. What made you decide between Mr. Blue or Mr. Red? Let me bring it back to my world. I work in the world of marketing.
It's time for the Pringles jingle.
And we try and spend, or we spend billions and billions of dollars in trying to influence you to buy one brand or another. I really wish I didn't have the sound on that. Thank you.
Then you get the fever.
Okay, so there's all sorts of things that we do. There's advertising, there's getting the products into the stores, there's experience of the product, etc., etc., etc. Great guy called Lord Leverhulme, who was one of the guys that set up a business called Unilever, which is one of the largest FMCG businesses in the world. He said, I know that 50% of my advertising works and 50% doesn't. The shame of it is that I don't know which bit does and which bit doesn't. But all of those influences, our product experience and so on and so forth, goes into our memories. Going to do another little exercise with you here. The screen's going to go black, and I'm going to flash up some brands. What I'd like to see if you can do is, can you recognize what these brands are? Okay, so number one was what flavor? Regular, full fat, okay. Second one was? Third one was? What flavor? The full fat, the full flavor, whatever you want to call it. I showed you those images for 0.02 of a second. It's physically impossible for you to have read anything on the pack. In fact, if you look at the Marlboro pack and if you look at the Coke pack, there's no descriptor that says it's the original. There's no descriptor that says it's full flavour. With that tiny, tiny glimpse of the visual cues that you've learnt, not only were you able to recognise the brand, but if I ask you to just ponder a second on the Coke, there's all sorts of other things that you know about that product as well. So having been seen a very simple visual cue that you recognised in 0.02 of a second, what's been stimulated is what we call an emotional packet. It's the collection of either analytical or conceptual memories that you hold about that particular brand. And what's interesting from a point of view of persuading people to buy things is that the closer that emotional packet is to you, the less likely you are to use rational things like price in order to make the decision to reach out and pick out that product. Interesting story here that starts to appear, which is actually from a very simple visual cue, you can not only recognize what it is that you're looking at, it's triggered a whole bunch of memories that you hold about that particular thing. And then if that particular bunch of memories is close to you, then you're less likely to make rational decisions. Interesting thought. Let's watch an advert. No, we won't. I'll show you this first. Here it is live in store. So the film you can see on the left here is eye tracking. So basically, the little crosshairs is exactly where somebody's looking as they scan across the fixture. On the other side is the scan of the brain. And what's interesting is the bottom part here where the insula is activated. That's where we hold what Damasio calls somatic markers, are short-coded collections of memories. And the interesting thing about those short-coded collections of memories is that every time we revisit them, I see the Coke, it triggers those memories. Our brains are plastic. Our memory is plastic. It has the potential to change and evolve. So I drink the Coke, good experience. I drink the Coke, good experience. I drink the Coke, good experience. This one's off. I relearn that maybe Coke is not the brand for me. So we can change those encoded memories. Here's the ad I was going to show you. Can we have some sound on this one? And I'd like you to just watch the advert, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions after you've seen the film.
Access granted.
Introducing the miracle of fusion, a revolutionary technology and a unique idea come together to create new Gillette Fusion. Until now, pressure could cause irritation. Fusion has 5 blades spaced closer together to reduce pressure with less irritation and more comfort. Flip Fusion over, a precision trimmer for those tricky places. The comfort of 5 blades, the precision of 1. Gillette's best shave ever. In manual or battery power. New Gillette Fusion.
Okay, what can you remember from that advert? It's good for tricky places. I love that line. Good for tricky places. I've been in some tricky places, but a razor blade wouldn't really help that. Anyway, people usually remember a scientist, maybe the helicopter, the hydrogen collider, and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic, that's good stuff. That's high attention. But what's happening in your brain is you're taking another thing. If I played that advert for you again, every single frame of that ad would have the colours of orange and blue, the orange and blue. What colour's the pack? Orange and blue. When you come to the fixture, the visual cue triggers the emotion. So if we're talking about the art of persuasion, outside of trying to sell you a Coke, outside of that, thinking about how we persuade people to think differently, what are the visual codes that people learn that are going to trigger their encoded memories that are going to help people make different emotional decisions? Think about Mr. Red and Mr. Blue. You looked at a series of visual codes. They triggered encoded memories about whether that guy was good or bad, and you made an emotional decision. Folks, that's how it works. Thank you very much.